All right, it's time to deep dive into the bowler position for BBL Supercoach. Big Horse, what are we going through?
Mates, we're going to go or give you our thoughts on the must-haves, the pods, the cheapies to start with, and even some players to steer clear of. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the ultimate super coach and fantasy sports show. You are now listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Yes, welcome back to another Insight BBL show on the Insight Podcast Network. I'm the Supercoach Brain. You can find me on X at SC_Brain, and the Big Horse is with me in the studio once again to talk through all things bowlers, mate. How you going?
We're back. Yeah, good, mate. Thank you. Underrated, that new intro we've got going on. It gets me up and going. Love it.
Yeah, I know. Bit of positive vibes.
Absolutely
makes me might want to go out this Friday night, listen to that kind of music. But
us.
Yeah, that's right, mate. Have you tell the viewers, because the commitment to the podcast, you dislocate your finger like an hour ago and we're still recording?
Yeah, I had a bit of an incident with putting the whippersnipper away and may have popped the thumb out. So bit of a jog down the road to an off-duty nurse, and she's helped me put it back in. It's an old footy injury, and it got stuck. So yeah, just needed a bit of a hand, but we're back.
Mate, you got to watch out when you're mowing the lawns these days. That's an occupational health and safety issue, I think.
Oh, I should leave.
Might have to pass it on to the missus.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Guys, before we dive into the bowlers, we're gonna ask you to subscribe first of all. Subscribe, like, follow, review, do all those things so you don't miss another episode of the Insight BBL show. And also, if you haven't joined our unlimited group yet, there's still plenty of time left. So you can jump in by using the code 482267 or clicking in the link in the description below, and that'll take you straight in there. We're going to be giving away weekly prizes thanks to the standard squeeze, and we're also giving away a Supercoach Champions ring for the winner. And lastly, jump in the Discord if you haven't yet. We're going to be giving away our thoughts on nearly everything BBL Supercoach for the whole season, where you can get access to us, our thoughts, our last-minute trades. A lot of things are going to happen in BBL Supercoach within an hour of a game playing. We're going to see team lists come out that are going to be right at the last minute. We're going to go, fuck, this player hasn't been named. This is who we're pivoting to, or this is who we're changing to. We're not going to publicize this stuff on X or Twitter. We're going to tell everybody in the Discord. So make sure to jump in there through the description or the link in the description. We're also doing the community team, Mick.
We are. Yep, we've got a team up and going at the moment, don't we? Thanks to the guys in the Discord. We've left it up to the community by letting them choose who have got in there. And might I say, it's quite a handy side we've got put together at the moment.
Absolutely, it is. I'm enjoying it. But obviously, there'll be some tweaks and changes as we lead into game one, and across round one, we'll be making lots of changes to get that right. So that'll be up to everybody else to get it right, not us, which is good. Mate, let's talk bowlers. Now, again, we'll preface this by saying bowler only we're covering here. And the next episode that we release in a couple of days' time will be about the dual position players, and that'll be a very relevant one. But now let's talk bowlers, because for me, I actually prefer bowlers only to batsmen only. Do you feel the same?
Absolutely. You brought up a good stat in our last podcast that 60% of the scores, or as per the average, go to bowlers and only 40% go to the batsmen. You get one good nut and nick off, and that's your day. You've got 24 balls here potentially to grab a couple of wickets or keep the run rate down. There's plenty of ways you can score as a bowler. Instead of with the batsman, you're forced into making runs, and if you don't, there's your day done.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a good point. You got to play with the numbers game, don't you? And if you get 24 chances versus potentially one good one, it's advantageous to focus more on the fielding side than the bowling side. And also, our bowlers can still take catches in the field too. So it's not just about bowling to get their points. They can still, if they're a relevant fielder in the team and fielding in good spots, they can get an extra 10 or 20 per game in fielding. So worth focusing on your bowlers in your bowlers section, I think, and then trying to get as many batsmen all-rounders that are also going to bowl up in your batting slot. That's probably the way I'm approaching it this year. Now, mate, well, let's talk about the must-haves first of all. And the must-haves, of course, are brought to you by the Standard Squeeze, helping you drink responsibly and conveniently. You can go to their website, thestandardsqueeze.com, use the code INSIGHT15 to get yourself 15% off everything on their store. They might even by now, I don't know whether they are by now or not, but they might still be running their massive sale. So cash in on that if they are. If not, just use the code, get yourself some money off. So Mate, talk me through the first one because I'm pretty sure we both have him. I think we both consider him a must-have. People are a bit silly. Well, the 79% that don't have him, they're a bit silly to not at least consider him, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And when we're talking about death bowlers and some of the better death bowlers we have in the competition, Short Abbott's right at the top. Only 21% owned, but it is a pretty hefty asking price at 197k. But that aside, he's going to bowl death. He can swing the bat as well. He averaged 64 last year, which, believe it or not, is his second lowest Supercoach season. That's unbelievable.
Shit. Wow.
Yeah, but it left him finishing fourth still with in the best Supercoach scorers for the season. So he will bat at 8, bowl death and power play overs. That's one of the best slow balls or best slow ball bouncers, in the game. Mate, what's there not to like about Sean Abbott?
I think maybe people are a little bit scared off by form against India. They probably watched the last couple of games and all that, and they're not really looking at domestic cricket results. They're looking at someone who's playing against the best in the world. And he got carded in the recent T20 game. I think he went for 50 odd off 3 overs and he got put to all parts. But fair enough, you're playing against the Indian T20 national side, who are considered to be the best team in the world. So I'm not looking too much into that, if I'm completely honest. I'm looking at the role. And when we look at him, he's the leading BBL wicket taker of all time. So we've got to look at how good this guy has been across Big Bash cricket at domestic level. We can't compare him to anything else. And, you just mentioned his average last year of 64 being his second lowest average ever.
That's nuts.
That is wild. So we at 197k, you could be getting him at a discount if he gets it right this year. And for me, I don't know where. Do you feel like there's going to be any rotation risk or any issue with him missing games or being rested at all?
No, I don't think there is. I think he's going to play every game.
I think so too. I think the reason maybe he got sat, I think he got sat maybe one game last year during BBL, but that was a 13-round season, and they definitely had more than one double game week. Whereas now, week one, he should be relatively fresh. He's coming off this series from India, so he might need a bit of break, but I'm seeing him playing both games in game one, and then you can look to move him on to someone who has a bit of a better schedule than the Sixers. I like it. Now, my other must-have is only 21.9% owned, which I'm actually really surprised about. It's Adam Zampa, 131k. He's not, if coming off a world record-breaking World Cup campaign where he knocked off Murali's 22 wickets, I think it was in 2007, and took 23 wickets in the World Cup. If that isn't enough for you, he has 5 games in the first 3 rounds, and he's also, keep in mind, just been sent home early from the T20 tournament squad game against India, or tour against India. That's going to give him more than 10 days break before BBL starts. And then we look into the role, and he's going to get 4 overs every game. He used to be the captain of the Melbourne Stars, so he's going to have a lot of say within the Renegade squad, even though they're more experienced. International spinner. Tell me why you can't pick him.
Is there rumours, or are the rumours true that he was sent home due to heartbreak with the bromance between him and Stoinis being broken up? Or
hey, I don't know. That's speculation, but I'd believe it. If it came out, I'd believe it.
Yeah. I really like this must-have. For me, I won't be picking him right from the start, and I'm hoping it doesn't come back to bite me. I'm actually going another way, which we'll discuss later in this pod, but he just broke Murali's record in the World Cup. He's a fantastic bowler, knows good areas, bowls a really nice wrong-un, changes it up nicely. He's well worth the price at 131k.
It's cheap for what you get. I think you've got to look at the value you're going to get in some of these players as well. The value for Sean Abbott, yeah, fair enough. You've got to pay up to get the points for him. But the value you're getting from Zampa far outweighs the value you'll get from Sean Abbott, in my opinion. Yeah, Zampa could give you 160, 170k worth of value, whereas Abbott, you'll probably get 200k from him, and that's fine. That's what you're paying for. So, I don't know, for me, and I know the direction you're going, and I actually really like it, and it's a good conversation point because you probably don't want to go with both. But we'll talk about him a little bit later. But Adam Zampa, I think you should be seriously considering him. I think 22% is too low. So, mate, do you have any other must-haves? I don't like to use the word must-have lightly, but I feel like these two guys are maybe the only two guys we would say you have to have them to start.
Not when we're talking just bowlers, no. I think those two are up at the upper echelon of just bowler only in BBL.
Yeah. Mate, do you want to take us into the pods then?
I can. So our pods are brought to you by Bonus Bank. Our first cap off the rank is Matt Kuhneman, 104K, 15% owned. Probably one of the small amount of players for the BBL that he's guaranteed to play all 3 games for the Heat in round 1. Was a lead spinner in BBL 12 last year for Brisbane and has also been picked ahead of Swepson for Queensland and domestic white ball cricket. Economy rate bonus always relevant with him. You're looking at him, Nate?
Yeah, it's between. I only want to carry 3 Brisbane Heat players in, and at the moment, I'm tossing up between him and Paul Walter. And the dual position for Paul Walter is very tempting for me. And knowing the fact there's a good chance he might have a heightened role in round 1 with all of the outs for Brisbane Heat, I'm kind of leaning in that direction. But if I wanted to have a safer pick, I'd be going Kuhneman all the way. I really like him. He's clearly ahead of Swepson. Now, we'll talk about Swepson a little bit later, but he's ahead of him. So for me, if there's going to be a player that sits out or a spinner that sits out during maybe there's a game where it's smaller boundaries, and we'll talk about that again soon too because that's relevant. Maybe there's a non-conducive spin wicket or a non-spin friendly wicket. Swepson's the one that sits out every single time and Kuhneman holds his spot. So for me, I agree on that one. I think I really like it, and 15% owned is actually quite surprising. I don't know. Maybe he's just not the sexy pick. You know, like everyone's looking for the Swepson because he throws them up and he entices the batsman to go hard at him. And he might get a couple of poles, but he'll go for 70. He'll never get your economy rate bonus. I can guarantee you that. Whereas Kuhneman just does his job, puts the ball on a dime, a little bit of spin here and there, but most of the time it's relatively straight. But he's got incredible control over the ball, and I don't know. I feel like based off last year, he did pretty well. So there's no reason why he can't do that again.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
Next one, mate, for me, and this is a bit of I don't know whether it's a spicy pick, but it's sub 10% owned. Everybody else we'll talk about here is sub 10% owned, and that's Andrew Tye. 185K, currently 9% owned. I actually really like this pick. The more that I look at Andrew Tye, the more I'm like, fuck, I might even start with this bloke. He averaged 60 last year. We talked about Sean Abbott's average of 64. It's kind of the same. You can put them in the same mold. They've got a similar role. Abbott will bat higher than Andrew Tye. But in saying that, Andrew Tye has a great role with the death. He bowls an awesome, changes the ball up, changes the pace of the ball up a lot. He's quite a tricky bowler. He bowls a really good Yorker at the back end of the innings as well. And he's their go-to guy for the power plays as well and the power surge, which is that over at the back end of the innings where they get to use the extra 2 out of the ring. So for me, there's no risk of rest for him either. When we look at the Brisbane Heat, the Perth Scorchers lineup, you've got Lance Morris, who's injury prone. You've got Jai Richardson, who's just coming back from injury, so he's guaranteed to get a rest at some point. You've got Jason Berendorf, who isn't getting any younger. He'll probably need a rest or 2 throughout. AJ Tye's the only one you can rely on here that's actually going to back up and play every game. I think there was a quote from last year. They interviewed him saying, when are you going to get a rest? And he said, I'll rest when I'm dead. For me, that's the kind of player I want for my Supercoach team, someone that rests when they're dead. You know, I don't need players not playing DNP for me in the second game of a double game week. I want them playing. So
yeah, absolutely. Regardless of how good a bloke they are.
I really like this pick.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. I really like this pick. I love it. So for me, he's in my team at the moment. So we'll see. We'll see whether that changes in the next week. We will see. But mate, talk us through. This is your alternative to Adam Zampa. Talk us through your reason.
It is. So I'm going with Mujib-ur-Rahman, who's 126K, only 6% owned. He's a nice alternative to Zampa if you want to get a little spicy. Was a 200K plus player as recent as a couple of years ago and has always played a huge role. He could bowl in the power play too. So for me, yeah, he might bowl in the power play. He's going to get his 4 overs. But I really like the fact that with Zampa coming back, and he's world-renowned and one of the best BBL spinners and T20 spinners in the world at the moment, I feel like people are going to play quite defensive against Zampa and then look to go after Rahman a little bit, which in turn, regardless of economy, for me, that just screams wickets. Yeah, he might go for 40 or 50, but there might be 2 or 3 poles in his 4 overs there. So that's the way I'm thinking. People are going to get more aggressive against him, which means, well, for me, hopefully more wickets.
Yeah, it's a good reasoning. I can't really argue against it. I think you're right in terms of people are going to have their eyes on Zampa because he's just coming off such a great World Cup campaign. And don't get me wrong, they've done that in the past, of course, but maybe there'll be extra eyes on him, a little bit more conservative approach against Zamps and more attacking against Mujib. So yeah, hey, I don't hate that at all. I don't mind it. Mate, my next one is the alternative, I guess, to AJ Ty, and that's Lance Morris. Now, everyone's predicting Lance Morris to be in this starting team. I don't know whether he is. It just depends on whether they want to come in with 4 quicks. And you know what it depends on? Ashton Agar and whether he's healthy or not. Because if Ashton Agar doesn't start, I would say they just go with 4 frontline quicks, and then they can use Ashton Turner and they can use Cooper Connolly as their 2 little part-time spinners to bowl 2 each. Or maybe they just go, Connolly, here you go, enjoy your 4 overs, and those 4 get through 20. Those 5 bowlers get through 20 overs. Maybe that's the way they do it. So I think if Ashton Agar is named, then Morris will probably sit out. But if Ashton Agar isn't ready to go, I think Morris is a flyer. So he took 9 wickets in the 4 games he played in BBL last year. So he's not short of a wicket. He got the economy rate bonus in 3 of those 4 games as well. So and the guy bowls fucking gas. Bit of a wild thing. Nickname being transferred across from Sean Tate here, but the only issue for me with Lance Morris is job security. If that wasn't a concern for me, I'd be all over him. And at 6% owned, it's worth a punt in round 1. If you see him, what I would do is make sure I had 1 bowler and the money available from a Perth player in my bowler section. And then if the Scorchers start and they name Lance Morris in game 1, I can just swap my Perth player to Lance Morris. That's kind of half the reason why I'm going with Andrew Ty. My tactic is there. If Morris plays, I'll probably just downgrade, bank the 30k cash straight to Morris, and then keep that in mind for next week. Keep that cash in the bank for next week. Because the beauty of round 1 is we can make as many trades as we want until the round's over, as long as those players aren't locked out. That's the way I'm thinking with Lance Morris, mate. Next one, mate's a bit spicy. I don't know how much I love it, but it's definitely a pod. 3% owned. Ben Dwarshuis, 183k for the Sydney Sixers. Now, it's very left field. The 183k price tag has been earned, though. I think that's one thing we need to consider, is that he's earned that 180k price tag based on his last season, not based on him being an import and just coming in at that automatic 180k price. So he got 14 wickets last season, but he only had the economy rate bonus in 4 out of his 9 games. So that's one thing to consider, is he does go for runs. So you might get less points in dot balls, less points in economy rate bonus. But in saying that, most of his Supercoach points are going to come from wickets. So he's guaranteed to bowl power play and death overs as well. Yep. He won't really be batting relevant, but for me, he's got the right role as a bowler. He's got that kind of AJ Ty role for Perth. So it's a really left field pick, but Sydney Sixers have the double in round 1. Then you can move him on to someone else in round 2 if that's your plan.
It's a bit of a sexier pick, this one. Like, I really like him as a bowler. Him and Abbott side by side, perhaps the best tandem death bowlers in the comp. Probably just a little bit too expensive for me, but at 3%, that's a nice pod.
Absolutely, mate. Do you want to take us through the last couple?
NCN, Nathan Cooten-Nile, 172k at only 2% owned. I can see why 2%, because his body just does not hold up. But anyway, he's another who has earned their price with a red hot start at BBL, with averaging 55 last season. Seems to start the season red hot every year with a 187, 73, 169, and a 99 the last 4 years. Worthy risk with stars on a double. Big injury risk and rotation risk, though. That's it. They're very impressive stats for first round numbers in the last 4 years.
It's funny, isn't it? He just turns up for round 1 and then disappears. But probably because he's fit and he's ready to go come then. But then, as the season goes on and as BBL goes on, those injuries start to catch up with him and he gets rests and all that kind of shit. So he might be a round 1 flyer if you want to get a stars player in your team, because he's, again, another guy that can swing the bat too. We didn't mention that, but he can hit the ball. You're right, though. Will his body hold up? I don't know. I just think there's so many other good options. I just don't know whether I'd want to take that risk, but the risk could be worth the reward if he pops off like he has every other year. So there's worse picks.
Going on those numbers, you could just have him in for round 1 for the double and then upgrade into Matt Short, for example, in round 2, if you wanted to get super spicy.
You could, absolutely. And I think the Matt Short conversation we'll have in the dual position episode in the future. But you've got to look for the money and look for an option to get up to Matt Short for round 2. So that's a good point.
You do.
How about the last one, mate?
Henry Thornton, 2% owned. Could be a really interesting emergency loop option for round 1 in preparation for the Strikers double in round 2. His first round, 260 last year, set up Supercoach's season that started with him on the double. Unfortunately, his 79 average across the first 4 rounds was where it ended for him. He ended with a 7, a 9, a 9, and a heap of DNPs. Can we see the return of the informed Thornton at Adelaide?
Yeah, look, I mean, do I want to have 160k stashed on my bench? I don't know whether I do. I don't think I do. I do, and I am wary of making sure I'm not attacking round 1 too heavy, and I am thinking about round 2. But for me, I'd rather Jamie Overton, I think, at about 30k cheaper to stash on my bench for round 2. I mean, we've got good options as a downgrade. Darcy Short's nice and cheap. You can use him for the double. You need to find a way to get Matt Short in on the double in round 2, hopefully at a discount. There will be some relevant options for the strikers in round 2, so you need to plan to get these guys in on the double. But I don't know whether Henry Thornton's it at that price.
No,
I don't know. And again, these are pods for a reason. They're point of difference players because no one's looking at them. But there is a reason why no one's looking at them. So worth a shout, worth a crack, but probably steer clear. Now, thanks to Bonus Bank for supporting this segment there, and you can go to bonusbank.com.au. You can use the code INSIGHT, all one word, get 25% off your first month premium subscription, and they'll teach you how to do all tons of stuff on making cash-free, tax-free money, and it's Australia's biggest side hustle at the moment. So get on board the hype train with Bonus Bank. Now, cheapies, mate. I've got 4 here that I wouldn't mind talking through. But before we do, the cheapies are brought to you by Ryan from Astute Newstead. So you can hit Ryan up on Instagram, Ryan Astute Newstead. You can also email him, ryanh@eganwealth.com. And you can hit him up for all your residential home loan needs. He'll look after you. He's looked after both of us and many of our friends that we know. And he'll give you a no-obligation free consult to just talk through your situation. If you've been hit as hard as we have with the interest rate rises and things like that, you're going to want to get your stuff sorted, so he can help you out there. And it's not going to cost you a thing. So hit Ryan up on Instagram or in the link below, and he'll look after you. Mate, Tanvi Sanger is a guy I'm very excited about.
Oh, he makes me so excited.
There's one word, gun. Like, this kid is, I think it's his 3rd season of BBL. So, I mean, for such a young player, he's got a lot of experience. He just spent the whole World Cup campaign with the Australians as well. So he's got to see an Australian World Cup win and beat India in India. Imagine the experience that would have given this kid. I'm sure he's going to be pretty excited to bring that back to the Thunder this year. He could be a really good bench stash. Someone you just put on your bench. You never have to play him because they're all on singles. You would just attack the better schedule, and you let him make your cash on the bench. He's not going to impact your scoring, and then you've already got him there for round 4 when Thunder come into their double game week. Because I can guarantee you now there'll be probably 2 to 3 players from the Thunder that everybody's going to be jumping on. One of them will be Daniel Sams. The other will be Tanvi Sanger and maybe Alex Hales. I think those 3 are going to be the 3 most purchased in round 4 when we're looking at Thunder's double. What are your thoughts? Is he in your team at the moment?
Yes, and yes. I watched some the replay. The last game that India played Australia, that T20, and we all know India play spin so well. And India scored 230 in a T20, and he still only went for 30 in his 4 overs. So.
Yep.
On a spinning deck against the best players of spin on the world, and he's still going at less than 8. Oh, count me in. Unlucky to not get wickets, but my God, that economy rate, and then against awesome batters of spin or people that play spin, count me in. There's so much money and so good scores to be made there.
For sure. And I mean, we look back to BBL 11. He got 21 wickets in BBL 11 and averaged 45 Supercoach points. That would cost you 140k this year for a player that averaged 45 last season. He's got the discount because he didn't play last year due to injury. I mean, you're paying 80-odd K, 83k for a guy who technically should cost 140 based on form. So you're making 60k by just picking the bloke. So for me, he's a lock. I think he's someone that nearly everyone should have, and he's 20% owned. Everybody else needs to probably play a little bit of catch up there. Sure. Now, I did have Hamish McKenzie, but we've just received word that Hamish McKenzie is going through some issues with stress fractures in his back.
Ooh.
And it looks like he will be struggling to play any BBL this year.
Ooh.
So thanks to the guys in the chat there for letting us know about that one, because, it looks like there's a concern there about his availability. Here we go. Exclusive Hamish McKenzie has suffered a recurrence of incomplete stress fractures in his back and is pushing to play a part this BBL season. So I'll wait for the dual position.
Let's put a line through him.
Yep. I'll wait for the dual position episode because there is someone that comes into a massive amount of relevance there. Absolutely. Now, take us through the next one, mate. Could be Rashid Khan's replacement potentially.
Yeah, Ben Manenti, 75K, only 4% owned. Only an option if Adelaide don't sign an international player, which it seems like they're going to anyway. But just keep an eye out with the news with Adelaide and what they're going to do there, because he would be the front runner, or will be the front runner, to take Rashid Khan's spot should they not. Imad Wazim is headed to the BBL, but we're yet to hear the signing news. But Adelaide would surely be the front runners for his signature. If Wazim doesn't play, Manenti, 75K, double game week, round 2.
Don't hate it.
Yeah.
I don't hate it. I don't love it. You know, it's one of those picks where it's like, you know, it could work out and he could make 50K, but I just don't see him being more than a 120K player. So if you wanted to get a little bit more spicy with it, you'd probably go elsewhere. And there's another option here that everybody's going with as opposed to him. We just need to see the Adelaide Strikers line up game 1, don't we, to work out what we're going to do there. Yep. Now, we've just found out as well as about 2 hours ago from recording this that David Payne has been signed by the Adelaide Strikers, the English international that played for Perth last year. So big left arm quick will come in there, which, I mean, creates more questions than answers in how they're going to use him. But he'll be with us for the whole BBL. So he's not leaving, not going anywhere. He'll play rounds 1 through 9 for the Strikers. So that's massive for them. I think David Payne averaged 67 Supercoach points in the couple of games or however many games he played for Perth. So he's a really good option. But does that limit now the ability of Manenti to get in this squad? Does this now heighten the Matt Short stock? Are they just going to lean on Matt Short and go, you're going to bowl 4 overs for us, mate, please?
Yes. That's what I think is going to occur. Matt Short, his stocks are rising. Yeah.
Who's the other spinner? Darcy Short and Matt Short at the moment, and you just go with 4 frontline bowlers, frontline quicks, and you can strengthen your batting lineup and just lean on Matt Short and Darcy Short at worst case. So keep an eye out there. If they do also sign, well, actually they can't because David Payne's their international replacement. Right. So Ahmad Wasim, keep an eye out where he goes because he was good for the Renegades 2 or 3 years ago. So keep an eye out. We know he's coming. Yeah, we know he's coming, so keep an eye out for him. He'll probably come in at a relatively cheap price too.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Mitch Swepson, mate? Talk to me about Mitch Swepson because I'm on the fence with him. He's 40% owned at 71K. Is he in your team?
Grass isn't always greener on the other side, and with Mitch Swepson, it's a big NO from the horse. Not really sure I like Swepson, but the price is quite appealing when you look that he's on a triple game week in round 1. Are they going to play 2 spinners? Probably not. The issue is that he's the first to go if they play on smaller grounds or less spin-friendly wickets. Likely to play at the MCG and or Gabba, but could sit out the likes of Adelaide, Bellerive, those sorts of grounds. So I'm not sold. I really aren't.
He could be in the fades or antipod section for me, I think. And it's the price is a free swing. That's all it is. You can even just chuck the emergency on him, and if he has a fucking cracker in week 1, you just use his points. So I get the move, but so those 3 grounds you just mentioned are the first 3 games they play. So I think they play the first game at the MCG, the second game is at Adelaide Oval, where he'll probably sit out, and then the third game will be at the Gabba. So it just depends whether they want to play 2 spinners at those places or not in those games. So very unsure, very on the fence about Mitch Swepson. The price is very appealing, like you mentioned, though. So I don't know. I feel like he's a guy that I wouldn't start in my 5 bowlers. So I'm kind of the only reason I'd use him is for cash gen. But then I'd want to get off him as quick as I could anyway because Brisbane Heat's schedule turns to shit. So I'm just trying not to overcommit to Brisbane Heat players. Otherwise, you could end up stuck with a few of these guys into around 3, 4, 5. And I don't know whether I want to be with how weak their squad looks.
So I would much rather, I'm glad you said that, I would much rather sit on Tanveer Sangha knowing that he's going to bowl you 4 overs and be a big part of the bowling attack there at Sydney versus Mitch Swepson, who's going to be in and out of that squad for 12K extra.
Yep. Yeah, and we said a couple of podcasts ago, like job security is so important now for BBL with all these injuries, all this news, with players missing game one, potentially playing game two in the second game of the round, but missing the first one means you're going to have to pick them or not pick them based on the fact that they're only playing half the games. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess at the moment. And I can guarantee you between now and the start of the season, there'll be tons more changes and more signings and more best 11, predictions and shit that are going out the window. So, yeah, it's tricky at the moment. It's very tricky a week out. I think we're 9 days out as of recording. So it's starting to become harder and harder to get a solid squad together, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So speaking about making it even harder to get a solid squad together, let's move into the fades of the antipods, because these are the guys that are either popular that we don't want to go with, which is an antipod, or we're fading them completely. Now, the first one for me, and I'm really still a little unsure on this one too, is Spencer Johnson. 125k is 27% owned, so he definitely is in antipod territory. How do you feel about it? Because if he lines up in game one, I might take a punt on him, but there's more logic to fade him than there is to punt him, just with injury history, the fact that he's actually recently been injured as well. The risk of future injury is massively escalated, isn't it? Because there's no way he plays all 3 games in round one.
No, I'm fading.
Yeah,
I'm concerned that he's going to get hurt. When was the last year he went through uninjured or didn't have to take a break because of injury or rest or what have you? So, yeah, I like my players playing, and I fear that he won't be playing every game. So he's out.
And I think also if you look at his stats in the recent 100 competition in England and in the BBL, there were a couple of games where he really lit it up and everyone's like, fuck, this kid's the next Mitchell Johnson. And then he went missing and didn't take any wickets for 4 or 5 games in a row. In the 100 competition, he got 3 for 1 or 4 overs, and everyone was talking about this bloke as the next coming of Jesus. And then I think he didn't take another wicket for the rest of the tournament or something. So is he that good of a pick? That's the question. Yes, he bowls gas, and yes, he's hard to hit and all these things, but there's just a lack of experience there for me that maybe he's someone that you just want to have a look at first. And if he lights it up in the triple game week, good on you. Yeah. He's one of those ones where, there's a player that's like 30, 40, 50% owned. You're like, fuck, like I could fade them. They might not go well, but I just don't want to be a part of that if I miss it. Like a Josh Philippe, 52% owned. I could easily fade him if I really wanted to because he's a batsman only. Yeah, he's a keeper as well, but he could get a couple of good rocks. But I just don't want to miss out if he goes big. Whereas this is in that situation at the moment where I don't feel bad about fading him and missing out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just not a fan. How about the next guy, mate? Another gate of yours.
Yeah, Peter Siddle, 75k, 26% owned, which I don't really understand. There's been plenty of openness about his role this year from both the Gades and Sids himself. Basically won't be in their best 11, and he's likely to be heavily rested and workload managed throughout due to his age. We'll play the odd game here and there. We'll basically play if and when Rogers or Richo or one of the other spinners are rested. So if he's not playing every game, why would you have him?
Yeah, for me, he's definitely a fade. I think he's way too owned. A 75k is the price tag, and the leading wicket taker from BBL 11, Peter Siddle from the Strikers, is in everybody's minds at the moment, and everyone seems to have just erased their memory from BBL 12, where he didn't do much at all. So for me, he's earned that price tag from last season, and I think we're only going to see less of Peter Siddle moving forward, unfortunately. He will play a really good role, though, when he does play. It's just unfortunate we're not going to get the most out of him. So I think he's a fade. A guy that I said I would nearly do everything I can to rip my team apart to get him in, I've put him on the fade list. And the reason I have done this is because the more I think about it, the more I want to make sure that cash is spread across my squad as best as possible. If Jai Richardson at 247k at 12% owned comes out and does okay, right? Let's say he does okay. He gets you 160k worth of value. He takes a couple of poles. He scores 50 or 45 or something like that. You still don't get anywhere near the value you've paid for him.
No.
Now, for me, it's tempting, but I have to pass. He's way too expensive. Way too expensive. Now, the only reason I think that you might want to start him is if you're a real risk taker and you just love picking all a team of pods, a team of spicy picks, and you just want to make it interesting and have fun this year, pick Jai Richardson. But I think the only reason why you want to start with him is if you want to do a straight swap to Matt Short in round 2. I think that is logical. I think if you want to have someone at that price where you don't want to have to downgrade to someone else to find the cash to go up to Matt Short, you can pretty much do Richo to Matt Short, unless Matt Short just goes ballistic and Jai Richardson has a stinker, which I don't think will happen. That's my thoughts on that. If you want to get up to Matt Short nice and easy, go with Jai Richo to start. But I think if you want to have a more even squad, I'd probably be looking elsewhere. Look at an AJ Ty. Look at a Lance Morris if you want a piece of the pie at Perth.
I agree. Totally agree with you.
I don't know whether you're going to agree on the next one, though. Jack Wildham.
No, I don't.
Fight me. Do you talk him up? Tell me why he shouldn't be.
91K, 4% owned. So, according to the Brain, he may only play 1 out of the 3 games in round 1. He's not in their best 11. Nate smells some trap vibes with him now, unfortunately. But for me, we're talking about Nessa being out, McSweeney. We're talking about Labuschagne coming in. We're talking about Kawaja coming in. We're not really talking about bowlers there, are we? So with his form this year, I quite like the fact that at 91K, he was priced at 166,000 2 years ago before doing his ACL last year. I like him as a pod, and at only 4%, I think he's going to play 2, if not 3 games. I think he's more likely to get through all his games over, say, a Spencer Johnson. So,
okay.
At 4% own at 91K, that's my free swing. If it bombs, it bombs. It's only 91K. I can downgrade into someone else on a double game week in round 2. But let's see how this goes. This is one we don't agree on.
Yeah, no. Look, the reason I don't agree is because I think he's Nisa's replacement. I think it's as simple as that. I think the only time he will ever play is if Nisa isn't. So for me, because I have a similar role, he'll probably bat 7 or 8 in this lineup in week 1. There is a little bit of movement with this squad as well. It seems like Paul Walter will probably bat ahead of him at 6, and then maybe Wildermuth bats at 7. And that's fine. A guy that's batting at 7 and might bowl some death overs, fuck yeah. Like, I'm all for that. And if it ends up being that, that's great. But I just don't know whether I feel good about picking a guy that's not going to play all 3 games for Brisbane and also doesn't have a solidified role for Brisbane either. It seems like he's just coming in as a replacement. And look, hey, if he stinks it up in game 1, who says they're not going to drop him? And because he's one of those expendable guys, like I don't know. I think the only thing saving him for me at the moment is the fact that he's an all-rounder. And he will bat at 7 and he will bowl. It's hard to find a replacement for Nessa that does some similar things to what he does. So I think that's his advantage there. But 91K, you're right. We're not punting on a 150K guy, are we? We're punting on a 90K guy. So it's not the end of the world. Yeah.
I'll put this to you. If Spencer Johnson plays round 1, then Nessa's right for round 2. Do you think they rest Spencer Johnson in game 2 and let Wildermuth play game 2 and potentially rest game 3? Or how do you think that'll work? Do you think they'll try and space the games for Johnson?
Probably. I think he might play game 1 and 3, maybe. I just don't see him playing 3 games in 6 days or whatever it is. It's too much for him, especially because he's been recently injured. He hasn't played much cricket recently. Like that's my concern for Spencer. He might not even play round 1. We don't know. Then Jack Wildermuth comes into conversation. If Spencer Johnson doesn't play in game 1, I'll probably look at him. But I think it's too much up in the air for me at Brisbane Heat. I just want to get away from them, as many of them as possible.
Yep. I love this chat. For those of you watching at home, drop it in the comments. Are you or are you not picking Wildermuth? Let us know.
Love to hear what people think for sure.
Yeah.
Mate, any other thoughts? Now, we've got Harris Ralph. Do you want to update everybody on what's happening with him?
So there is something going on with the Pakistani board, which is prohibiting him from coming to Australia for round 1, I believe. So he may be a healthy scratch for round 1. Do you have anything more there?
No. It just sounds like, so there's a certain certificate that the Pakistani board have to provide for him to come over and play in any other domestic cricket competition. So it's just protocol basically. And it sounds like the Pakistanis are delaying that certificate. So there's a real chance at the moment. I think the news is that he will miss game 1 for the Stars, but he will play game 2. So, which makes things even more complicated because we don't get a solid squad for the Stars for the whole round. We get Harris Ralph and maybe even Assam Amir, who's in the same conversation. He plays for Pakistan as well in the same team. Maybe this happens to him too. I know that Harris Ralph was saying that he pulled out of the test team. Maybe there's a bit of bad blood. We don't know. It's all speculation. But Osama Mir and Ralph could come into this Stars lineup and completely fuck shit up for everybody. So looking at the Stars round one team, you've got to look at the solid picks again. It's exactly the same thing as the Brisbane Heat, isn't it? Just all over again for the Stars.
It is. Yeah.
What a mess. What a mess. But there you go. That's our bowlers done and dusted. We've talked through fades, anti-pods. We've agreed on some and not on others. We've talked through cheapies. We've talked through pods itself and the must-haves. So, guys, take it. Obviously, we're hoping that this gets a little bit more clear. It's clear as mud at the moment with the amount of movement that's going on in the off-season, but we're getting closer and closer now to actually seeing some solidified teams. So hopefully this will make a lot more sense soon. Mate, we've got one more to go, don't we? Dual position. That's going to be a banger.
Very spicy. There's a few nice picks in there.
Yeah, and it's the preferred role, isn't it, in Supercoach? Someone that can bat and bowl. So we'll talk through a lot of the relevant ones there, and we'll have the same format, must-haves, pods, cheapies, anti-pods, fades. We'll talk through it all. Anything to add, mate, before we wrap up?
No, just for those of you watching who are yet to subscribe and like to the pod, down below you'll see the subscribe tab. Click on that, click like, click the little bell thing even, so that you know when we put something out for the wide world to see. Tune straight in off the bat. We will be going live just before round one as well, so we can show you our teams, go through all the up-to-date news to keep you guys up to date with everything going on.
For sure. Looking forward to it. Not long now. So, guys, that'll do. We will see you next time for the dual position episode. Keep an eye out for that one. Until then, you've been listening to an Insight BBL show. See you later.
Peace.